Welcome to Conversations with Deborah, a bi-coastal dialogue with myself, Malcolm Berman, and Deborah Manning.
Hi, Malcolm. How are you today?
I'm fine.
Good. It is Friday, April the 16th. It was the day after official tax day.
Well, it's not official tax day because they delayed it.
That's right. Thank heavens, because I'm not done with all of my plenitudes of taxes that I'm doing for people. So at any rate, I am joined here by a very sleepy Gracie. She's over here sitting on the chair, the other chair here in the office. And then Max, excuse me, Max, for heaven's sakes. Sorry. He was doing a little bit of tidy work, okay?
Well, there's an old joke, but this is a G-rated show, so I'm not.
Yes, it is.
And you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do. So please. We're going to be showing our age, but that's fine. Who cares?
Oh, did you get that email that I sent you about getting older? Did you read that?
I did not. No, doggone it.
Oh, I sent it to you. Remember I mentioned I was going to do it last week. I think I sent it at the beginning of this week.
Okay, well, that's possible. You know, busy me being semi-retired, you know, I have all these things to do.
Well, I don't know what retired means.
It doesn't mean that much anymore. I think especially now, I'm coming up on my birthday in about a month, and it'll be an interesting birthday. It's not a stellar birthday. It's not one of the 00 birthdays, but it reminds you that time is a wasting and time to keep doing things. Medical science has made it so that we probably could reach our mid 80s, 90s, maybe mid 90s if in good health, if we keep ourselves in good health. But you walk every day, don't you? How many miles do you end up walking?
I wind up about 3 to 4 miles a day.
Well, there you go. I bet your doctor is very happy with you.
Well, everything that I have, they do. I asked them what it says age related.
Oh, crime entities.
It's age related. There's nothing you can do about it.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
Whether it be shoulder arthritis. Because I can't. I still lift weights. But I can't do my chinning up anymore. I used to do chins.
Oh, you can't? Oh.
No, I have arthrice in my shoulders and it hurts.
I know.
Of course, physically I could do it, if it didn't hurt. But when I place a weight on there, I don't want to take a chance.
Oh, I know. It's funny because Fish and I used to do the handyman business. That's how we got ourselves back here from Southern California after being there for 60 plus years. And for about 4.5 years, we've been here now 5.5 years until COVID hit. We were actually a handyman team. And it was very interesting because we really did have to be careful as we were getting older about shoulder issues. We used to hang drapes. And I have got to tell you, talk about a shoulder situation with your rotator cuff. You do not want to fool around with your shoulder and a rotator cuff. But that lifting up, it's hard. It's hard on you, and you got to be careful. Got to be real careful.
But it's funny. I could do like a bench press.
Well, that kind of makes sense.
When I'm lying on my back, I could do. Sure. We have like 45 pounds on each side, and I think the bar itself is 30, and I can go up to about 50 pounds on each side. So about between 140 and 150 pounds I press.
Young man, that's not bad.
That was nothing when I was younger.
Yeah, absolutely. But we got into that total gym thing, which was just a scream, of course, with Chuck Norris. And we do use it. We do use it, although it is a scream because, of course, we adore Chuck Norris, and all the jokes about Chuck Norris.
Well, I like Chuck Norris.
I do too, and the total gym actually does, it does work. It does a lot. It really does.
Well, it doesn't do anything. You have to do it. If you don't work it does.
That's true. That's true. And especially at my size, I'm almost 6 feet tall. That it does. You do the work, but you put in the time and you put in the effort, and it actually does work. So I do like it.
Well, it reminds me of the story about, you know, I've been a member of, one gym or another for the last 40 years.
Sure.
And during the regular season, there's not that many people that go to the gym. Especially, I'll always go sometime in the afternoon. Even when I was working, I would take some time off to do in the afternoon. I never liked the morning. I never liked the evening.
Yeah.
And New Year's time or before or after New Year's, the gym is jammed because people make the resolution, I'm going to lose weight and I'm going to tone up.
Yep.
And then about 3 weeks after the New Year's, sometimes in mid-January or the beginning of February, you don't see so many people there because they realize it's hard work.
Empty. I know. So let's review the week. It's been a very interesting week, has it not?
Yes,
you and I chatted while you were on your walk yesterday about the latest situation involving the Democratic leadership doing a press conference in front of the steps of the Supreme Court, and they are now asking that legislation be brought to increase the number of justices by how many? How many did they want to
13-4.
Yeah. So it was interesting listening to the arguments that somehow our justice system is broken and that President Trump had packed the court and all of these various types of things. But I do have to say that it's been working well for about 187 years. And not that I'm a traditionalist, but I do think that 9 is probably a pretty good number. And that whole idea of Trump packing the court, I don't know that it really holds water, only because if in fact he had packed the court, would the Supreme Court not have listened to arguments about the 2020 election in terms of all the issues surrounding that?
Okay, I know you're not going to like this. As usual, he packed the court with people who, were very conservative. But as usual, when he does business with anything, it goes bankrupt. He did it, but it didn't turn out the way he wanted it.
Well,
the question is, first of all, I haven't watched the news today, but the last time they asked Pelosi, and she was speaking yesterday, she said she's not going to bring that to the floor.
I think that was very smart, because the polls are showing at this point right now that Americans are not happy with that. Okay. And I do think that you are going to have the backlash, normal everyday people going, what the devil is going on? Right. Why do they think that we need to have additional Supreme Court? We have other issues to be concerned about.
Yes, so a certain segment of the Democratic Party wants it. We know who that segment is, but the main thrust of
Let's call it the P word, the progressive.
Or the AOC.
The progressives, yeah.
And the last that Biden said, he said he's going to have a committee to study it. And
well, that certainly didn't last very long.
The recommendation.
So
number two, what I see that's wrong with the court, which I'd much rather them bring up to issue, is the lifetime appointments.
Well, I think the reason that was brought up was so that the justices would not be in any way swayed by the politics, and I understand why that was really done. I mean, for example, we don't have term limits now for Congress or the Senate. So why would you impose term limits on the Supreme Court?
Well, that's another thing. There should be term limits.
Well, you can. I mean,
you
can wait forever on that one.
I mean, you have
that's not going to happen.
You have people running this country who, are old enough to remember the Civil War.
Practically.
Yeah, I mean, who the Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi, she's 81.
83. You're right.
83. McConnell, how old is he? Yeah, a lot of the senators are in their 80s. They don't necessarily. I mean, they might be bright and they might be, but they basically, I would say, a lot of their work they give to their underlings, their assistants to read and do that. And some of them have been like 20, 30 years, and the Congress people, they're out of touch. And
I have to say that they're out of touch. And speaking of out of touch, I must say that I was astounded by the dressing down of Representative Jim Jordan,
Jim Jordan.
by good old Maxine Waters, and of course, unfortunately, South Carolina Representative Jim Clyburn. I think that Dr. Fauci was speaking about COVID, and I know that Jim Jordan was asking him, when is this over? When do we deem the pandemic is over? When, how many cases? And he wanted specifics and what have you. And Dr. Fauci did not want to give any type of specifics, et cetera, et cetera. But the problem is, at this point right now, this is really, this whole pandemic situation, I think, has been more run on fear than science. And I was astounded at the fact, but maybe I shouldn't have been astounded, but the fact that Maxine Waters is saying something about shut your mouth. I mean, what is it? Why in the world can we not start to be civilized, especially in Congress?
Well, the question is, again, maybe her verbiage wasn't right, but I don't know why she doesn't shut off his mic. I don't know if she can, but there's a certain time limit you're supposed to do. Which you're supposed to, again, if you are, do what you're supposed to do. When the time limit is up, and she said, "Mr. Jordan, that's it. You ran your limit." No, but he wanted to continue. So what do you do? Fine,
but we still didn't get any answer from Dr. Fauci. Well, Dr. Fauci has put himself out to be the scientific expert on the pandemic. Fine, but we need to have more definitive answers as to when and how he determines that the pandemic has basically been under control. He doesn't want to discuss it. He doesn't want to talk about it. And unfortunately, I mean, he's been made a folk hero, for heaven's sakes, on all of this. And while the rest of various states are continue to be closed down, and yet we have no really definitive answers. And I understand where Jim Jordan was asking, as many Americans have been asking, Dr. Fauci, what the hell is going on? Why do you not give a specific answer?
Well, why doesn't he ask his governor? Because it's not a federal issue.
Well, but keep in mind, the governors are following, and they point to Dr. Fauci as being the scientific source.
Again, I hate to say this, it's political. The government, the Republican governors are not following, and the Democratic governments are following.
Well, once again, remember, we had a discussion about Florida and now Texas. Texas is fully open at this point right now, and they have fewer COVID hospitalizations. They may have cases, but they certainly don't have the hospitalization rates. And I know we still have to be cognizant of the variants and all of that. But once again, we do need to open things up. Now, interestingly enough, last month, the retail sales for the consumers, you and me, went up an astonishing almost 10%, almost 11%. So it looks as though finally people are starting to open up, they're starting to spend, and the economy is finally starting to rev up where it needs to be.
Well, I hate to say this. I had friends that said they were listening to the former president who said, if Biden gets in, sell your stocks, it's going to go down to 2. I think yesterday was the highest that the stock market has reached.
Yep.
And with 34,000.
And you know the reason why is because you don't want to simply put it into bonds. The savings rate, I know in my bank, is sitting at 0.1%. Even the money market accounts are sitting at 0.1%. Yeah. So sure enough, that's why you're seeing the increase, because there are a lot of buyers out there that are chasing stocks.
Well, the thing is, it hasn't collapsed as someone predicted, and the unemployment rate went down. I think it was 6%.
Heavens. Thank heavens. But it's very interesting though. Here in South Carolina, I'm talking to a number of small business people, and they are really lamenting the fact they really cannot find employees. And even though they're increasing their pay rates dramatically, they still cannot find employees. The employees are preferring to stay on unemployment, which is certainly their prerogative. But it is a shame that, in fact, many of the small businesses are being unduly affected versus the Walmarts and the Targets of the world, because they seem to be doing just fine. Costco's doing great. They have plenty of people and, plenty of employees, but the smaller businesses don't.
Well, maybe because they paid a decent wage.
Well, they're increasing. I mean, the small businesses are increasing their pay. They certainly are.
And an important thing is benefits.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Absolutely.
an important thing where people work right now is that they get health benefits.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know when I had my own company, we made sure that they had full health benefits.
Right.
We even had AFLAC, which was the insurance in case they got ill and we're going to not being able to work and what have you. I agree. You need to make sure that your business is profitable enough so that you can pay decent wages
Right.
and give decent benefits. I have
Right.
to agree with that.
And now I don't know if you read where Biden has done away or has loosened the work permit things of having people coming in who aren't necessarily, citizens who will live here, but they get work permits because there was a whole lot of technical people that the companies couldn't find because the technical people weren't here, and there were certain like the lower wage people, like the farm workers that basically the farmers couldn't find because they didn't have the work permit, was done away with the aforementioned president. And now they've loosened that, and supposedly business and small businesses are very thankful about it.
Well, I'm glad that's the case. However, I do find it amazing that Vice President Harris has decided to forego going to the border to observe some of the problems that the Border Patrol is having, and instead is going down to Guatemala. Of course, we talked about that last week, and the Guatemala president had said the whole reason that we have the influx of migrants coming in from all of Central America is because Joe Biden invited them in. So here you have the president of Guatemala saying, "You invited us, we're on our way."
Well, yeah, but that's like saying that when they asked Putin, did he have anything to do with the election or bugging it, and he said, "No, not us. That's asking Guatemala or the people there. You can't trust them. Number one, well, she is, or I read an article today, she was delaying the trip because she's not sure who to talk to in the country. Because
well, can somebody in the intelligence department please tell her to go talk to someone?
No, because I think it's the brother of the Honduras president was just convicted for drug running in the United States, and he's in jail. So a lot of those governments are corrupt.
Well, geez, do you really think that maybe this whole thing is benefiting the cartels, the drug cartels, the human smuggling cartels, and the child sex labor cartels? I do wish that we could get a handle on this situation, and please bring in those immigrants who truly want to work and want to contribute to America, rather than those that don't, that want to simply be on welfare, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, yeah, but that's the whole the issue that has been for centuries, that they say, oh, the immigrants come in. They did it with the Jewish immigrants. They did it with the Irish immigrants. They did it with the Italian immigrants.
But we did not have a situation like we're having right now when we had the Trump administration policies. You and I have gone around and around on this, but number-wise, we didn't have that kind of a situation.
Right.
Now, I blame Congress for not having a decent pathway to citizenship for those worthy folks that are coming in from various places and want to contribute to America. I mean, there's no reason why you wouldn't want to have people who want to contribute to America.
I mean, you have the DACA people who were here since they were brought in by their parents, when they were 2 years old, 3 years old, and they grew up here, and they're going to college. What's the thing of not making them a citizen?
Well, I don't understand why, in other words, we don't have a pathway to citizenship for those individuals who are in fact contributing to America. There's nothing wrong with making America first. There is absolutely nothing wrong.
Right.
And for people and the other thing that was amazing to me was the UN ambassador is now apologizing for America. What the devil is going on here? We don't need any more apology tours. She apparently apologized for all of the problems, the white supremacy and blah, 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 blah. Do you realize that there was a study out of the University of London, and interesting study that said prior to, in fact, let me get the statistics on it, that prior to In 2015, a University of London study showed that the terms racist and racism, okay, were used in the New York Times and in the Washington Post 0.00002% of the time. In 2019, it increased 700% in those newspapers. And the conclusion was the hysterical media coverage and not active real life has turned this country against itself.
Okay.
And I do have to agree. I mean, you talked to me about the KKK coming into Orange County. And I have to tell you that I read the news coverage on it. And the news coverage basically, and I don't have the exact numbers, had maybe 20 KKK members and about 2,000 other people who said, get out of town. We don't want to hear about this nonsense.
It wasn't KKK. Actually, it was White Life Matters was a group with a lot of KKK coming in. But the question
is, me.
what you just, the statistics which you just read to me.
Yeah.
You know what my conclusion is?
What?
What happened in the year 2016 that changed everything?
What did happen?
Our president.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that encouraged this.
Well, I don't have to. The problem seems to be that everybody is calling everybody else racist, and I just think it's absurd. I think we're starting to see now that many people are pushing back and saying, because I am of different skin color than you, does not mean that I am racist. And to conclude that we are now, and we are divided now along racial lines is not America. America is the great melting pot. We are the great experiment, but an experiment that needs to make sure that we stay in this level of understanding and of working together. And I have to tell you, the news media is simply going out of its way to give us disinformation. And I'm sick of it. I'm tired of it.
I have a feeling that we look at the past with rose-colored glasses. I mean, America, I mean, it's the best what we have, but it's a big but it was always divided. There were always groups. There were always neighborhoods. I mean, you growing up in California, in the big cities, you didn't taste, there were so many people of different groups that were there. But South Carolina, there was probably, aside from, the Black, I don't know how many Latinos they had or different people that were melting in. I don't think they melted that well, back then, even, going until where they had the Jim Crow rules until they got, equal rights or
well, interestingly, let me give you a quick story. And I didn't realize this, but in South Carolina, one of the seminal court cases actually took place in downtown Greenville. There was a drugstore here in downtown Greenville that had a whites only and a coloreds only. And a group of teenagers came in, Black teenagers came in, and they sat in the whites only section. They had to call the police. It was a big hubbub and what have you, but it went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And in fact, it's one of the seminal pieces of desegregation, where they said that the store owner was incorrect in segregating whites from quote unquote, as he called them, coloreds. So I found it very interesting. So I'm walking downtown, and of course it's changed into a different store, but there it is. I mean, the history here in South Carolina, it has changed, and it is getting far more integrated, obviously. But it has a history, as is Georgia. I mean, I was very critical of the way that the new Georgia voting law, which simply says you have to have voter ID, and I was very critical of the fact that the governor, Kemp, did not invite Black and Hispanic leaders of the community to the press conference. So it made it look like it was simply a white guy signing away voting rights for minorities, which is not the case. I understand that Coca-Cola is now today starting to walk back their whole idea of condemning the Georgia voting law, which once again is strictly asking for voter identification for not only in-person voting, but also for absentee voting.
Well, how do you provide voter identification for absentee voting?
You do it a combination of ways. In fact, I've read it, leave it a little bit further, is that you can have it through a utility bill that would have your name on it. I know that I had to provide a utility bill showing my name and my address when I got my driver's license here in South Carolina. They're very strict here in South Carolina, but you can have a utility bill.
So
you can have
you
state
send the
identification.
you send the utility bill in with your absentee ballot?
I beg your pardon?
When do you present the utility bill with your absentee
apparently
ballot?
you send it. You can send it with your absentee ballot. But interestingly enough, they've also increased the number of places that you can drop off absentee ballots. So it needs to be sealed, obviously. But and they've also extended the number of hours and the number of days for voting. But you and I also agree on one other thing. I do think that there should be a national holiday for an election. Right. I don't understand why we have to jitney things around on a Tuesday, for example, so that we can vote early or we can vote late because we're working, for heaven's sakes. So you and I agree on that.
And certain people can't get off.
Absolutely.
If you have where you can chop off your absentee ballot, if you have more voting places that are equally distances in different areas, that rich areas have as, or poor areas have as much voting places as rich areas. People don't have to wait online for 7-8 hours like they have. And I could see what they do. Voter identification, when you register to vote, you have to prove your citizenship.
Of course.
And then you're registered. Then you're on the state has who's registered or not. So now somebody can enter a Deborah Manning and send a ballot in for you, which you don't know about. But if you send the ballot in also, then that's going to raise a red flag. Not both of you are going to be counted. But
and what's interesting though about the absentee ballot situation now is that they're not doing signature comparisons. They're asking not to do signature comparisons, which can be very arbitrary, especially if someone's ill, for example, on an absentee ballot. They want to have either the social security number, which is not, the last 4 digits. Heck, you provide the last 4 digits for a credit card if you apply for a credit card, for heaven's sakes. But I do have to fault Georgia's governor. I have to agree that that Blacks and Hispanics, they should have had the leadership there at the press conference saying, yes, we have increased number of polling places in minority areas, and they didn't do that. So, once again, Republicans flat-footed. I'm sorry to say, flat-footed.
As what we're proving in our show is, yes, you have the people all the way on the left. They want this. You have all the people all the way on the right that want this. Not all of them are ideally right. So there has to be some sort of compromise.
Yeah.
I mean, compromise is not a dirty word. Compromise
no, it is not.
How you do business.
That is not. And it's important to have Democrats and Republicans having different points of view, but then coming up with the facts to support those points of view.
Right.
This constant grandstanding, I call it, is it's not helping us one single bit. It's dividing us more. And I have to tell you that, you can see how China is applauding all of this. Russia is applauding all of this. China at this point right now is got its eyes targeted on Taiwan. I know when my late husband, Tom, and I went over to Hong Kong and we met with some of the Chinese for doing banking and what have you. The Chinese were once again still saying, don't you dare say anything negative about us wanting to acquire Taiwan. And at this point right now, they have the naval capability of doing it, which is a little bit daunting, to say the least.
Well, the world is scary out there. If you talk about things, Russia has they're amassing troops on the border of Ukraine.
Good
aside
God.
from taking over parts of it. Iran is now threatening, to bomb Israel because of the nuclear reactor. And you can be sure if Israel did do it, they had the tacit approval of the United States.
Yeah.
The world is aside from COVID, and again, people who are doing this politically, whether you like Fauci or not, as you say, you wear a mask because you believe in that. So it's not, and there should be a way of balancing that, of people going back to work but wearing masks, being protective, like they've done years. I think in Japan, you see old pictures of Japan, and people are wearing the mask on the subway before the COVID because of the air quality. So there has to be a middle ground. You can't say no. I'm macho. I'm a Republican. I'm not going to do it, because I think it was 46% of the Republicans, said they're not going to wear masks.
Well, that's our priority. We choose to wear masks, so that's fine.
It's not a priority. It's the common good.
Well, once again, I hate to say it, but you and I had a discussion about seatbelts, whether you should be mandated to wear seatbelts. Frankly, if you don't want to wear seatbelts, and a lot of people here in South Carolina don't want to wear seatbelts, you're unfortunately gonna die in a traffic accident. And I hate to say it, but that's your prerogative to die in a traffic accident. Same situation with the masks and what have you. But I do resent the fact that many of these small businesses are being unduly impacted by the closing. And now that you have Texas and Florida, you've got hospitalization rates that are way, way down. You have increased COVID cases, there's no doubt about it, but they are not fatal. They're not fatal.
Well, I'm still a little confused, because I don't know. When I was listening to the news, they were saying, how the COVID cases are increasing. Now, I don't know whether it's we're trying to achieve, and this, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know, but as what I understand, as long as there's COVID and people still have it, the variants can increase.
Well, I think
it's still alive. It's like trying to kill Dracula.
Right, but you're never going to have. In other words, we are not ever going to be germ-free, my dear. But what we can be is that we can make sure that we're not going into the hospital. We don't have excessive hospitalization situations.
Yeah,
for example, we had our organ man Brian, whom this is Maxie is back here.
I got something to tell you, which you were not going to believe. My alarm just went off.
No.
We were on 30 minutes. I can't believe that one.
I can't believe it either. Anyway, let me finish my story.
Okay, go. I'm not cutting you up, by the way. I'm just saying.
Brian, about 40 years old, ended up getting COVID, and he was not hospitalized. He said it was horrific. I agree, because I think I had it in February of last year. But once again, he was back on the job. Now, does he continue to wear a mask? Yes, he does. Did he get the variant? No, he didn't. But once again, it's the whole idea. He didn't go into the hospital. That's what you're most concerned about.
Yeah, well,
that's where I'm coming from.
I mean, I don't mind if, you get sick, you get a cold, or you get the flu, as long as it's survivable and you can treat it.
There you go. There you go.
But
anything else you want to talk about, my dear?
I have a whole list of things I want to talk about. We can talk about the elections in Israel.
Oh, interesting.
And they still haven't decided. They probably have another election coming up soon, because no one won a majority. We could talk about Prince Philip and the funeral tomorrow. and these are lighter things, where whether William will talk to Harry, and supposedly they'll both be walking there, but not together.
Oh, that's a shame.
We could talk about the aches and pains we have when we wake up.
Yes.
We could talk about what we're talking about before the show, the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Continental Divide.
Yes.
And then when I come to visit you, I want to go up into the mountains and see the country people.
You will.
And look at.
You will.
And well, I'm not going to drink anything from the stills that they make.
No, and I haven't either. It's flaming, I'll tell you.
Right, the white lightning. I tell you, I think I told this story. My uncle owned a service station in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And one of his people were from the Blue Ridge Mountains. This guy who went back to the Blue Ridge Mountains on vacation, and he came back and he bought several bottles of the.
Oh, no.
I'm talking about 60 years ago.
Oh, no.
So when I was over at the station, he was a friendly guy, and he said, "Here, take a shot of this. Tell me what you think." I swear that still burns in my system today. I wake up and feel that thing was so strong. I think it burned out my small intestines.
Well, I smelled it once and I just about swooned at that point, fainted. It is something else.
Anyway, you know something? I think today we agreed more than disagreed. We know there's a problem, and we have to fix a way of fixing, and we have to find a way of fixing the problem without going on the outer edge on both sides.
I wish that we could have lawmakers that would truly listen to the American people. I don't know that they are. I think that right now the progressives and the left are really commanding much too much. And the final thought that I have, and we'll explore this a little bit later, is that in a couple of cases where, and you and I have been talking about this, but perhaps in some states, Minnesota, perhaps, Oregon, perhaps, California, Washington, New York, that perhaps if the voters have decided they should have a referendum whether they want police or not, and they can come here to South Carolina because we want police. But I think that at this point right now, that these people, the police officers, are putting their lives in danger even more than before.
Okay,
and that if in fact in Oregon and in Washington State, that the riots continue and the protests continue, perhaps let them continue. That's what the voters want. I think that's what the voters are asking for. Well, it's a radical idea. It's a radical idea.
That's a whole other show. But the one thing which I disagree with you, and you say, I want our representatives to listen to the people. Not necessarily. I want our representatives to be leaders. I want our representatives to find solutions to problems. And the solutions might be difficult for the average person to comprehend.
Good point.
I don't want to vote somebody that's my next door neighbor. I want to vote someone that I consider bright, which again, I mean, my presidents are the ones that I grew up with, JFK.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a man of ideas. To me, one of the best foreign relationships we ever had or ideas we ever had is when he did the Peace Corps.
Yeah.
It send young people out there to help the other countries. Just don't give money.
I have to agree. I have to agree.
And I think Bill Clinton was part of it, aside from anything that he had his sexual proclivities, which has nothing to do with governing.
Yeah.
And people would laugh at it. I think Obama was of that same ilk. He was bright. I want to vote somebody that's bright, that has ideas.
He was bright, but the problem that I had with Obama, and I was just so disappointed because I did vote for him the first time, is that he didn't seem to really like America, at least about 3/4 of the way through his first term. And going on the apology tour, I have to tell you that China, Russia, Iran, they only understand strength. And I know that also from personal experience. When Tom and I went to Hong Kong, they understand strength. They don't understand peace and what have you. They understand strength, and we need to be strong. These people are very serious. They can be extremely vicious. And our democracy, our liberty is precious. Precious to us.
But it's funny when you talk about certain countries that are our nemesis, whether it be China, whether it be Russia, whether it be Iran. If you would talk to the person out on the street, not the ones that they...
Oh, I agree. You bet.
Not the people that they photograph that are rioting or anti-American, but you speak to a typical Russian or a typical Chinese on the street or a typical Iranian. They're not anti-American. They might be different about some of the things that America does, which I am, against, but they're not anti-American. It's a government.
I agree. But the problem is that you have such forces as China taking over the South China Sea with their eyes on Taiwan. Right. You have Russia with their eyes on the Ukraine. You have Iran with their eyes on all of Middle East. Right. And it's not the people, it's the government that's
right. But you have to handle this diplomatically. You can't handle this with a iron fist. Well, if you do this, what are we going to do? Drop the damn bomb on them?
No, 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 no. But there are things that you can do that I do believe that the former administration, the Trump administration, was doing. And I say that as an independent, voter. There were things that were done to be able to curb some of the situation with China and with Russia and with Iran.
Well, the only thing I have to curb is the length of the show, because we can continue on.
I'm sorry.
No, I mean, it's our natural conversation. It's like, I say hello, Deborah, and we talk, and like I use you a lot in the morning. People might know when I'm walking, I do a lot of my phone calling, because it's perfect timing, because a lot of my connections are back east, and I'm walking about 8, 9 o'clock, so it's 11, 12 o'clock back east, but where you are in New York. And it helps when I'm walking, I'm not running anymore. I'm walking. And when I'm walking, it helps time go by.
Good man.
And all of a sudden I'll look at I've done 3 miles already. But anyway, and we could talk about this forever. You have a good week.
I will. And thanks so much. It's, loving hellos to your entire family.
And to Fish, and to your cats, your
all of my cats and the hens.
to your furry friends. And
that's right.
Anyway, also email this to your friends. It's malcolmpresents.com. Conversations with Deborah. Remember.
Thanks so much, Malcolm.
Okay, I'll speak to you soon.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.